A complete overhaul ordered for the Customs Service after a series of blunders. Police badly bashed in Perth during a routine call. And 30 years since the Beatles hit the big time.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Jim Waley.
Good evening. A government inquiry into the Customs Service has found plenty to declare. A catalogue of faults and blunders so extensive that the organisation is said to need rebuilding from the ground up. The head of the service resigned soon after the report was made public. More than 1,000 others in the service could also lose their jobs. This report from Peter Harvey.
The government ordered a wholesale review of the Customs Service after a series of spectacular bungles, culminating in the Midford Paramount Shirt Company being hounded out of business.
A dreadful case.
Midford Paramount eventually got $25 million compensation, but by then the customs vendetta had closed its factories and made hundreds of people jobless. The inquiry found the Midford case all too typical, condemning the Customs Service for wide-ranging inefficiency, secrecy, intimidation and lack of accountability for its actions. The Australian Customs Service should be abolished along with all its senior management positions. Customs Controller General Frank Kelly stepped down today, but was immediately reappointed as a government consultant on international customs matters, a move that's enraged the opposition.
Why is this man who presided over the demise of the Australian Customs Service to be rewarded at taxpayers' expense?
Customs Minister Schott says Mr. Kelly's international expertise is still needed.
You may want to have a bloodlust and swing the axe and be something like out of the War of the Roses and chopping heads off. That's not my view.
The inquiry also recommends swinging the axe on up to 1,400 jobs in customs.
It's not only obnoxious, it's naive and threatens very much the security of Australia.
The inquiry wants the government to take the axe to something else while it's at it. Tourists should no longer be able to bring cigarettes duty-free into Australia. Peter Harvey reporting for Nightline.
A Senate inquiry now seems almost certain into the conduct of Ros Kelly in the so-called sports rorts affair. But what's still to be decided is whether the embattled sports minister can be forced to testify. For that, a ruling may be needed from the High Court. Laurie Wilson reports.
Suddenly, Ros Kelly was looking like a minister who believed the worst was behind her. But not if the opposition and the Democrats have their way. Today, the Democrats delivered an ultimatum to the beleaguered sport minister: front the House of Representatives inquiry into the sports rorts affair or face an independent inquiry established by the Senate.
I think we are coming to crunch time in the issue of ministerial responsibility and accountable government.
The opposition wants but won't get a royal commission. Instead, it will back the Democrat move for a Senate inquiry and is prepared to take the issue to the High Court.
If necessary, we will test the powers of the Senate to subpoena ministers to come before them and answer in relation to the expenditure of funds.
The government is also under fire over the Prime Minister's plans to overhaul the proceedings of the lower house. Among other things, ministers will now be rostered to appear at question time, restricting the time they'll be required to spend in Parliament.
And I bet that Ros Kelly can hardly wait for the ministerial roster. It means that when we get her under pressure on one day, we aren't allowed to pursue her the next day.
John Hewson has looked a little more secure this week, but if anyone has enhanced their leadership prospects, it's his finance spokesman, Peter Costello. In caucus today, the Prime Minister disparagingly dismissed Mr Costello as a permanent low-altitude flyer, prompting this response.
Look, I'm only a low-altitude flyer in the sense that I'm a stealth bomber. I go under radar and I'm about to dump on him.
Laurie Wilson reporting for Nightline.
2 Perth policemen were badly beaten tonight when they were set on by a group of thugs as they made a routine call. One of the attackers wrestled a revolver off one of the officers, as Scott Bevan reports.
Yeah, Roger, we have 2 officers down with a shooting involved.
What began as a routine call to a domestic dispute in Beachborough erupted into a brawl that has left 2 police officers seriously injured. What's still unclear is if any weapons were used in the fight with allegedly 3 men.
I believe they were received by manual means, you know, with may have been a baton involved. Their own baton may have been used against them.
There were reports of gunfire and one officer lost his service revolver during the brawl, but police say no one was shot as first thought. Within minutes, backup police converged on the Yenisei Crescent home. The men allegedly raced from the scene but were caught nearby on the Tonkin Highway. They're now being questioned. The 2 police officers were treated at the scene and rushed to Royal Perth Hospital. It's believed their injuries are serious but not life-threatening. Even so, fellow officers are shocked by the incident. Scott Bevan reporting for Nightline.
A jealous husband has been convicted of murder after killing one man and wounding another he wrongly believed were having affairs with his wife. 53-year-old Frank Allen Garner was also found guilty of injuring his wife Beverly during a shooting rampage in Melbourne. The court heard he burst into the factory where his wife worked and began firing at her colleagues. Garner will be sentenced at a later date. Sydney police have appealed for help in finding a young mother who's been missing for almost a week. Carol Deaver disappeared after spending the evening at a local hotel. She'd had an argument with her husband Gary, but neither he nor her 4 children have seen her since. Police say she hasn't contacted friends or relatives either, and they hold fears for her safety. Some extended warranties for used cars sound too good to be true, and they are. The Consumers Association has warned that many are full of loopholes and that motorists should scour through the fine print.
Extended warranties are used by car dealers as a sales incentive. They range from $200 to $2,000, covering anything from 1,000 to unlimited kilometres. But Choice magazine warns some warranties aren't worth the paper they're written on.
We found that these used car extended warranties have loopholes big enough to drive a truck through. They have pathetically artificial deadlines on servicing.
Choice investigated 12 extended warranties and found most excluded major service and breakdown work. The Motor Traders Association says car buyers often mistake extended warranties for new car warranties. The industry agrees fine print can be misleading.
The biggest complaint is a misunderstanding of precisely what's covered.
And the MTA says that comes down to dealers eager to make a quick sale. Basically, an extended warranty is an insurance policy, and the Motor Traders Association believes the incorrect title is fooling many car buyers. Warranty companies are being pressured to change the fine print.
There are limits to how long a car can last, so you get a 10 or 15-year-old motor car and getting a warranty with it, although albeit it might be costing you $600 or $700, but it's for 2 or 3 years. It's not bad value.
And the best advice? Read the policy and don't be pressured into a quick sale. Michael Usher for Nightline.
After the break, a young boy tells of life in battle-scarred Sarajevo, and is cartoon violence sending the wrong message to children? Old boys from the exclusive King's School have agreed to pay for damage caused during a reunion at the New South Wales Parliament. The incident proved an embarrassment for the host, the state's Ethnic Affairs Minister, Michael Photius. A King's man himself, Mr Photius left before the ruckus, which saw food fights, glasses smashed, and tomato sauce splashed over carpets and an expensive wall hanging. The fantastic capabilities of cartoon characters let them suffer all kinds of violent mishaps, then get up and walk away as though nothing had happened. Critics say that sort of television viewing is conditioning children to accept violence as fun. Fleur Bitcon has the details.
Nightgown.
Some parents may dismiss cartoons as kid stuff, but a warning today they should be careful what their children watch on television.
Children model the violence that they see, they incorporate that into their play, and they begin to see violence as just a normal part of life.
The cartoon debate stems from comments by Education Department Chief Ken Boston. He says he's not crusading against Wiley Coyote or Roadrunner. He just wants parents to take a closer look at cartoons.
In those cartoons, if someone is knocked on the head with a hammer, they don't suffer permanent brain damage.
But while violent cartoons are an explosive issue for some, Others say that in a child's development, cartoons are the least of parents' worries.
We need to look at the home life of children. We need to look at their relationship with parents and their relationships with their peers.
The message from both sides is that parents need to guide children through all television viewing so they learn the difference between right and wrong. Fleur Bitcon for Nightline.
NATO has moved closer to backing airstrikes against Serb artillery positions in an attempt to break the siege of Sarajevo. Appalled by the weekend mortar attack on a marketplace in the Bosnian capital, European leaders have finally agreed it's time to consider intervention. But with the UN unable to pinpoint who was responsible for the massacre, several diplomatic hurdles remain.
The horrific scenes of the mortar attack on the Sarajevo market prompted the now familiar cries of outrage from world leaders. And now, like so many times before, there's talk of military action against the Serb gunners thought responsible. Today, the US and its NATO allies moved a step, but only a small step, closer to launching airstrikes. US President Bill Clinton endorsed the call by UN Secretary Boutros-Ghali for NATO to authorise airstrikes.
I don't think we should have any more empty threats. Let's just see what we can do in the next couple of days.
But even if airstrikes are eventually ordered, serious doubts remain about their effectiveness against the highly mobile and easily camouflaged Serbian guns. There are hundreds of them in the hills around Sarajevo, shown here in this 3D map, just released by the CIA.
Small, mobile things are harder to find, harder to hit than big, stationary things. This is not a particularly easy mission.
And then there's the fear the Serbs would retaliate against the poorly protected UN peacekeepers. Unfortunately for the people of Sarajevo, diplomacy could end up being the West's preferred option once again. In the United States, Mark Burrows for Nightline.
Despite the constant gunfire echoing around the Sarajevo Valley, life goes on. But it's a black version of life for the children trying to find a reason for the daily violence and cruelty that surrounds them. American newsman Peter Jennings has been in Sarajevo's foothills talking to a boy about the dangers he faces today and the vague hopes he holds for tomorrow.
This must stop because very much people dying. For me, not problem when they kill army, but they're shooting on people and children and women.
But your dad's in the army?
Yes, my dad is in army.
Does it worry you when he goes off to the front?
Yes, sure.
Do you go to school now, Eki?
No, I don't go to school because winter.
Because it's too cold?
Yes, it's cold. They don't have firewood.
No fire, no heat in the school?
No.
So what do you do all day?
I play football with my friends or basketball.
Do you know anybody who got killed?
My best friend is dying in this war. I would love him very much.
Eki loves his city, and we went to have a better look.
Is it safe?
Yes, I don't scare now. Play football on that place, and when they was best than another team, they come here on this restaurant and they have party.
Really? They used to
Yes.
have parties here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No parties now?
No party now because people destroyed for 5
The shooting discouraged me, and we went back down.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I don't know. I don't think about that.
What do your mother and father tell you what the future is going to be about?
They don't talk about that.
How come?
They don't know what to say me.
They don't know what to tell you about the
Yes.
future. What do you think about the future? Would you always stay in Sarajevo?
No, I think in Bosnia never war stopping.
But do you think that the Bosnians, you people here in Sarajevo, you can fight this war by yourself?
It's very difficult, but you see, we fight with Serb very much time, and I don't know how we can do that because we don't have very much means and shells and gun, but we have heart.
You have heart.
Yes.
In other news, a self-confessed Australian drug smuggler has won a temporary reprieve from an almost certain life behind bars in Thailand. Martin Garnett was due for sentencing in Bangkok tonight, but a last-minute hitch led the judge to adjourn proceedings for a fortnight.
Martin Garnett left prison this morning for a court hearing that had been expected to decide his fate. Wearing leg irons, the former Sydney car salesman was driven under armed escort through rush hour Bangkok to the city's Central Criminal Court, where other foreign drug offenders are also being tried. But Garnett's case was unable to proceed because a prosecution witness failed to turn up. The 27-year-old Australian will now have to wait a further 2 weeks to learn how long he'll spend in jail. He's pleaded guilty to trying to smuggle nearly 4 kilos of heroin to Australia and is resigned to a life sentence. Since arriving here at the weekend, Garnett's mother Lynn and grandmother Marie have done their best to offer comfort as they themselves come to terms with the gravity of his plight. In Bangkok, Adrian Brown reporting for Nightline.
Prince Charles continued his tour of New Zealand today without further incident. Just to be sure, police are keeping the man who sprayed him with air freshener yesterday behind bars. Sam Brackenov, an ardent anti-royalist, was refused bail today and will remain in jail until the tour ends. His wife says it's a good idea.
Because he makes me shame. I really shame what he's doing.
Brackenov had pleaded not guilty to a charge of disorderly behaviour. His bail application will be heard again on Friday. A fierce storm has brought more misery and destruction to areas of Southern California already devastated by bushfires and last month's earthquake. Expensive beachfront homes have been inundated by big mudslides in Malibu as rain-soaked hillsides, stripped of vegetation by last year's fires, suddenly gave way. Tonya Harding's Olympic fate is still up in the air, but her name is at least on the practice schedule in Norway, where some skaters are already on the ice. Back home in Portland, Oregon, attention switched briefly from Tonya to her new pickup truck, which was about to be towed away for illegal parking. Tonya spotted it in time and with camera crews in tow, managed to save it, parking it legally nearby. Then, to spare her bare feet, a friend gave her a piggyback. In a moment, our World Focus. Tonight, a special anniversary for the Beatles. "30 years ago, America was living in the shadow of the Cold War, trying as well to cope with the national trauma caused by the assassination of John Kennedy. Then, out of the blue, the US was invaded by 4 happy, cheeky lads from Liverpool. Tonight's World Focus looks at the tour that captured the attention of a generation and gave the Beatles their big international break.
A Pan Am jet touched down in New York, and 4 mopheads, calling themselves the Beatles, got off.
I may be a little square. I don't know what Beatles means.
It just means us. Well, you've seen those little crawly things, haven't you? Oh, we're big crawly things.
Love, love me do. You know I love you. I'll always be true.
They were witty, cocky, and youthful.
They were a little smarter than people were used to rock and roll bands being. They were a lot of fun, and they were musically fantastic.
Already a hit in England, this was to be the Beatles' first magical mystery tour. And it began with their appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something. I think you'll understand when I say that something. I wanna hold your hand.
A record 73 million Americans tuned in, including Tony Kornheiser.
And I recall being so excited by the presence of the Beatles on TV that I wanted to scream, and I held myself back because I was a guy.
Debbie Gendler was lucky enough to be in the studio audience.
I never heard one word they sang. The thing that I remember most is Ed Sullivan at the very end of the show saying, "Everyone drive home safely."
For a nation still mourning the assassination of President Kennedy, the Beatles were a welcome sight.
It really was a great relief from all the stress and pain we've been feeling.
Well, she was just 17, you know what I mean.
After 3 consecutive appearances on The Ed Sullivan Show, the Beatles sold more than 2 million albums in the U.S. in less than a month.
These youngsters from Liverpool, England, and their conduct over here not only as fine professional singers, but as a group of fine youngsters, will leave an imprint with everyone over here who's met them.
They still mean to me a lot of fun, a lot of freedom, a lot of good times. They gave me direction when I was a teenager and really wanted somewhere to head.
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you.
Beatlemania had begun to creep into the nooks and crannies of America. And 30 years later, the Beatles and their music remain inseparable from the times.
We were so innocent, and along come the 4 nutty boys who said the funny things and had the crazy hair and wore the suits without the collars. I don't think we could ever have a time like that again.
Those were the days. Still to come tonight, the latest finance and weather, and in sports, some big names give the game away. To sport now, and long-serving New South Wales and Australian fast bowler Mike Whitney has announced he's retiring from cricket. Speaking at the launch of his book, Quick Wit, the 34-year-old left-arm paceman said injuries had finally taken their toll. Dozens of sporting greats were there to wish him well, along with his wife, who's expecting their first child. Also looking forward to spending more time with his family, 3-time Wimbledon champ Boris Becker. The 26-year-old former world #1 says he's retiring from full-time tennis. Michael Roberts has the story.
While tennis screams out for colourful personalities, one of the most flamboyant, Boris Becker, has decided to quit and concentrate on fatherhood. Having boomed onto the scene as a 17-year-old, the only unseeded player to win Wimbledon will devote time to his wife Barbara and son Noah Gabriel. Becker joins the likes of Pat Cash and Bjorn Borg, who have retired prematurely. But another international star, Michael Jordan, is on the comeback trail. Not on a basketball court, but in minor league baseball with the Chicago White Sox. Instead of springing straight into the majors, the former Chicago Bulls hero will have to battle in a development squad a level below with the Nashville Sounds. It's a chance, not a free ride.
I'm willing to take a couple of hits before I approach the mound. No.
Meanwhile, along with a record 46 inches of snow in the past month, Olympic fever has well and truly hit Lillehammer. It's been a painstaking job clearing the main stadiums for the 17th Winter Games, but the enthusiasm continues to mount with the opening ceremony next Sunday. Michael Roberts for Nightline.
In finance news, the Australian share market recovered slightly today and rose 24 points. In Tokyo, the Nikkei was up as well, gaining 236 points. In London tonight, the FT 100 is almost 40 points higher in morning trading in reaction to a round of interest rate cuts. Gold has fallen $3.50 an ounce to $3.8025 US. And in European trading tonight, the Australian dollar is buying 71.89 US cents, 1.26 Deutschmarks, 78 yen and 48p. The national weather, and there's a low in the Bight, followed by a high, and a trough is crossing Tasmania and the southeastern states. The forecasts: a late storm in Darwin, mostly fine in Brisbane, a late storm and very humid for Sydney, showers in Canberra, Melbourne and Hobart, fine in Adelaide, and another fine day in Perth. To finish tonight, supermodel Claudia Schiffer has turned television reporter, taking the cameras behind the scenes during Haute Couture Week in Paris. First, a visit to the design houses for the all-important fittings. Then, meeting fans along the way. She heads backstage for makeup and last-minute instructions. No sooner over than it's on to the next designer, another show, and another set of dazzling dresses. Good night.